maybe like a focus group. If you've built a corporate community, there's definitely a focus group for your business. So if you could get a bunch of interested people together in a room to talk about what's important to them, that would be great feedback for you for products and services. Listen, you understand how that affects you, and that's sort of what a community is going to give you. But it's not a conversation you're having with an individual. It's an engagement as a peer in a group. So it's not an inbound or an outbound interaction with your business in any way. So, you know, if you look at a community as a focus group, the contact center doesn't listen to focus groups and interject things when they hear something wrong, right? That's not their job. And so communities aren't really contact center related. They're absolutely a valid social medium for your company that you want to be paying attention to and investing in. It's just not one that the contact center is going to be looking at. It's not an inbound or an outbound interaction. Now, if you look at advertising 2.0, I mean, this is marketing in its most basic form, right? You're creating web media, you're putting it out there, you've got reward programs, click this like button, you can win prizes or get extra stuff, right? That's marketing. Isn't that magazine advertising in the Web 2.0 world, right? And so again, although your contact center may take some of the fallout from what marketing does, it's going to drive some extra contacts maybe, but it's not making the artwork and it's not placing the ads. It's not something the contact center does. So again, your business should absolutely be engaging with this, but it's not a contact center function. It's not an inbound or an outbound interaction, and there's no individual that you can interact with. So let's look at the third social medium, which is microblogging. How is that applicable to the contact center? Because this is where the center involved. So first, let's look at why people tweet about you. Well, the first reason people tweet about you is because they love you. And the second reason people tweet about you is they don't really care one way or the other. It's just they're mentioned, and by the way, this is what happens most of the time. Or they will tweet about you because they hate you with the heat of a billion white-hot suns, usually because you did something wrong, in their opinion. But people don't start yelling and tweeting about you for no reason. They're usually trying to get things fixed, or they've got a problem, and it's only when you frustrate them that they really start yelling at you. And tweets like that, they're yelling at you. And it's unfortunate. And I heard this at a social media conference, and so it is author unknown, but it was a great comment. Tweeting is about retribution. It's not about resolution. Okay, resolution, in most cases, has already been tried and failed. So a bad tweet about your company is usually, not always, but usually the result of a failure of the contact center in the first place to resolve the problem. So this person has already gone through customer service. They didn't get what they needed. The problem didn't get resolved. They thought the service was bad. So they tweeted about it to tell everyone about their bad experience. They went and told their 10 friends, right? So let me give you an example of how not to engage on Twitter, okay? And this was my own experience with my cell phone provider, Rogers. And to be fair, I kind of did this as a test while their director of social media was speaking at a conference, and I thought I'd try it out. But as you can see, I tweeted the problem directly at Rogers, and then I explained what the problem was that I had, what I had already discussed with the contact center previously. And if you go down to the bottom right, the final answer, and I have to admit, it actually gave me a bit of a chuckle, but the final answer was, well, you should speak with customer care and ask them to try and fix it. So I had a problem with the call center, so they said, we'll try the call center. So now, I think Rogers made 3 mistakes here. First, they referred me to the contact center at the end when I'd obviously been there already, so that wasn't great. But second, this discussion, this is all public. These tweets are there for all eternity. Right? Now, Rogers eventually followed me and initiated a private conversation so I could identify myself and get the issue resolved. But that should have been done first. So, and I'll assume people don't know a lot about Twitter, but it's a public posting of information. So if you Google any of these data strings there, put quotes around them, put them in Google, those tweets will show up. So it's very, very public. And that's the beauty and the curse of Twitter. So my Twitter ID, which is up_RMCD, please follow me. It's definitely not my Rogers account number, so they don't know who I am. And they don't have my Twitter ID on file. So they need my account number to identify me. So what companies in social media are doing is they send a direct message, so a DM, which you can do with someone who is, quote, following you. So Rogers followed me and sent me a direct message, asked me to follow them, and once done, we could exchange information privately. And that's the first thing they should have done. Because what you want to do before you try solving the problem is find out what's my account number and then properly address the issue. And the third problem that I thought was, I had to repeat everything. I had already been through this in the contact center, and yet again, I had to repeat it because although they could follow my tweets, they can't seem to tell when I contacted them before and why I contacted them and what happened that made me start yelling about this in public. And by the way, I'm not targeting Rogers as a bad example. As I said, the guy was speaking and I thought I'd try it out, but this is representative of what people are doing in this space right now. Now, I've talked about following people on Twitter, and that's a measure of importance in the Twitter environment. It lends relevance to the person or the company that's tweeting, how many followers they have. But be careful what you interpret. So let me give you an example here. I found this, remember I told you all this stuff is public, right? I found this little exchange about AT&T on Twitter. And it was a bit of tongue-in-cheek, but there's some truth to it. AT&T has twice the number of followers in Verizon. So, is it because they have problems, or, AT&T is also pretty advanced in its social media strategy. So they're going to have a lot of followers from simply following people to resolve issues because they're pushing them to Twitter. Or Verizon may have fewer problems, I don't know. Or Verizon may have a less active social media strategy. So they're soliciting fewer followers to resolve issues on Twitter. Now, if you look what AT&T is doing from getting followers, this is their feedback page. Remember the Web 2.0 advertising? This is their equivalent. Right? It's basically an ad for how to contact customer service. And that's a great way of addressing customer service issues if you've got one, by soliciting people to not only call them, but chat or tweet or whatever the person wants to do. So that impacts the contact center directly because that's going to drive interactions into the contact center. So actively soliciting and following people's tweets, that seems to be a really good place to start with social media in a contact center. Now, if you start this kind of program, let's look at a couple of the issues that you're going to run into, and there are a bunch. First and foremost, there's privacy restrictions. So Twitter is the odd man out here in that, as I said, everything in Twitter is totally public, blessing and curse. Facebook, on the other hand, you've probably seen this in the news, but it's becoming increasingly restrictive against the exact kind of use that you want to put it to in your business. Right? Privacy on the internet it's really, really in its infancy, and it's going to continue to evolve. And it's going to evolve in ways that aren't helping us as businesses because you're trying to get this information for commercial reasons. The other thing is the users out there, they have user IDs all over the map. They're really anonymous. You don't know who they are by their Twitter handle or their Facebook login ID because it's not their account number. It's really no different than when they phone you. Right? When people phone you, calling line ID is not that useful. So you still need to ask in most cases, what's their account number? And you need to get that information really before you can engage in in any kind of meaningful interaction with them about any kind of problem resolution. And lastly, there's a lot of crap out there on the internet, and most of it isn't relative to what you want to know. Signal-to-noise ratio, it's really high. You don't want to implement a routing technology that's going to go scan for your company name and blast everything straight to an agent, because 99% of it isn't useful. Your agents, they're expensive. You're going to have to assign people to do this, and they're expensive resources in your contact center. So you not only need to scan the internet for mentions of your company, because that's what you're going to do, is really just a bunch of targeted Google-type searches for your company. And that's simplifying it a bit. But there are companies out there that do this. They provide solutions that let you scan the internet for actual meaningful information related to your business. So companies like Radian6, it's not a plug for them, but it's the company that I hear people talking about the most, and I've listed a couple of others up here. And they don't only scan the internet, but they're going to analyze what people are saying, and they're going to look for the intent of the mention. Is it someone who's happy? Is it someone who doesn't care? Is it someone who's upset? So that you can start to filter out things that aren't relevant. And then you can deliver the stuff that's important to an agent for action. Okay, so let's do a short recap for a second. So you've got a few different types of social media, most of which you don't care about in the contact center. And then the ones you care about are the ones that you, A, can do something about by providing some service so you can fix things. But also, B, these are the ones that were probably caused by the call center in the first place. So you can filter those through to a group of agents to do something about it. And if you're going to have to buy something to do that filtering, okay? Unless you have agents sitting around with nothing to do but wade through tons and tons of stuff, you're going to have to spend some money on Radian6 or Scout Labs or Simplify 360. You're going to have to do your research on that. So you've got that information coming in. You've identified some problems with some users. What's next? So let's look at what you can do about these problems. There is the old adage in customer service is that a complaint is a gift. Well, when someone's tweeting bad things about you, it's like getting a new car on your birthday. It's huge. And your job is to resolve the problem and do it quickly, because social media is full of people who are used to instant gratification. They expect a response, and they expect it quickly. And once a tweet's been made, you got to respond to it quickly by acknowledging it, and then you have to resolve it quickly. So first step, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to directly engage with the customer. If you don't set up that engagement, you don't know who you're talking with. And again, really, you're airing your dirty laundry in public. And by the way, if they know that you're going to help them, they're happy to tell you who they are and what the problem is. But you need to be fast, because once the tweet's been made, it's going to be there forever. But if you resolve it quickly, that same person, they're going to tweet great things about you right away.